Welcome to the sixth episode of the Seeking Wisdom in Stories podcast. In this episode, we'll explore the topic of inner healing and how it ties into satisfying, cathartic endings to stories. If we think of inner healing as a transformative change at the soul level for a character, we probably see that character going through an emotional arc that takes them from a negative state of being to a positive state of being. So essentially, the character was in a bad place internally and then ends up becoming more whole, more healed, or even just a little more at peace at story's end. This change at the soul level also often ties into the internal conflict of what a character needs versus what the character wants. The story could start off with the character really wanting a job promotion or more material wealth and status, but what the character really needs is self-acceptance or a meaningful relationship with a loved one. To get to that positive state of being means some kind of internal healing occurred. We saw the character burdened by a flaw, a conflict, or an antagonistic force, and then we see the protagonist overcome it and enter into a new mindset, worldview, or lifestyle. In a therapeutic age, when many people are searching inside themselves for answers or clarity, it's a complex storytelling challenge to say something meaningful about inner healing. For example, is inner healing found through self-will and one's own willpower, or is it found in deep, life-giving relationships with loved ones? When do we know we have achieved actual inner healing, or are we deluding ourselves into thinking we are better than we really are? The questions can be endless. The other challenging aspect for storytelling, especially on screen, is that we're watching behavior and action happen between characters. Unless we have a voiceover or some other clever visual element to look inside a character's mind, we usually would see shifts within a character represented by changes in relationships with others or with the surrounding environment. The film Inside Out follows characters inside the mind of a young preteen girl, and each represents a specific emotion like anger, disgust, fear, joy, and sadness. The beauty in the film is a growing realization that it's okay to embrace one's sadness instead of shoveling it away to be hidden and untreated. The film's main conflict is between the characters' joy and sadness as they learn to coexist and embrace their differences. By the end, we see that these characters coming together actually help the preteen girl to mature and grow in a healthier way. The idea of letting go also seems to be tied to stories of inner healing. A character is letting go of a burden from the past, a heavy hang-up, or something that has clouded his judgment. Inner healing seems to happen when we allow ourselves to travel back in time to past hurts that have been hidden in the shadows, and then to bring them into the light to be healed. Often this kind of inner healing occurs within supportive relationships between characters on screen. In the film Good Will Hunting, the protagonist Will experiences inner healing when he begins to accept himself and take responsibility for his past and his actions. His relationship with therapist Sean changes and shifts over several therapy sessions. Will started off as a brash, confrontational, arrogant young man, blessed with gifts of genius, but he's squandering his potential by shortchanging himself with poor decisions. It takes the loving, fatherly care of his therapist, Sean, to be patient, to firmly confront Will at several points, and to open the door for Will to release the pain and suffering he's held on for so long. One of the most powerful scenes in the film has Sean showing a case folder to Will, revealing photos of Will's past, being abused by foster fathers, and telling the young man it's not your fault several times. Will can't handle the empathy, and he tries to push Sean away through various tactics. But in the end, Will collapses into Sean's arms, crying out to release his pain for the first time. In the film, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, the process of grieving is key for moving toward inner healing. After her brother T'Challa dies in the film's opening scene, Shuri goes on a long journey, working through several stages of grief before she can find the strength to burn her funeral clothing at the film's end, symbolizing her willingness to let go and to honor her brother's passing. The film goes quiet during this last scene, removing any musical cues and eventually taking out environmental sound design to let us, as the viewers, sit in the silence with Shuri. We know in the film that Shuri not only lost her brother T'Challa, but also her mother, Queen Ramonda. Inner healing offers the hope that comes out of deep grief and gives us the resolve to keep living. It could be argued that any film where a character undergoes an emotional transformation likely involves some degree of inner healing. Something in the nature of that character's being has changed at the story's end. Often those changes are tied to shifts in dynamics in the character's relationship with other people. In the beginning, there could be traumatic events that exist outside of the main character that cause the deep wounds, or those wounds could be delivered from another character. A story might create context for us to quickly empathize with this wounded protagonist, creating a subconscious desire within us to want to see the character overcome the hurt and find inner healing. There's an inherent narrative structure in the cycle of experiencing pain and then experiencing healing. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. The beginning is the initial wound, the middle is the journey to find recovery, and the end, in a positive ending, is entering the state of healing. It's a cathartic experience, and we can tie other story elements into this, including themes of redemption, coming of age, revolution, and comebacks. Like stories of redemption, stories about inner healing offer promise for our own situation. It's highly possible that we want to vicariously live through these characters and feel the emotional ups and downs that take them to a better place. In the film 8 Mile, the rapper Eminem plays a fictional version of himself named B Rabbit, who overcomes his self-limiting ways and the expectation of his environment to find his own artistic voice. It's a thrilling ending when we see B Rabbit take on several competitors in the final rap battles, because up until this point in the film, we never really saw him go full out with his rapping. The lyrics he chooses shows an inner strength that only happened after encountering disappointments and taking real risks throughout the story. B Rabbit has healed, at least in part, from his self-doubt and inability to express himself when he takes down one opponent after another in the film's final scenes. In the animated film Boss Baby, one of the last scenes shows Boss Baby receiving a letter from his older brother Timmy while sitting inside his lonely office in Baby Corp. The brothers are estranged at this point, but Timmy writes a heartfelt letter calling back to something that Boss Baby impressed upon Timmy earlier in the film. The calculating baby had convinced Timmy that his parents only have a limited amount of love to give to their children, sparking their rivalry against each other. But near the film's end, Timmy says in his letter that even if there's a limited amount of love in this world, he still wants to give it all to his younger brother, Boss Baby. It's a transformational moment that tips the scales for the baby, who humorously celebrates by tossing off his suit and pants and then rushes to a life back with his family. It was their brotherly love and acceptance that brought inner healing to Boss Baby's heart. In the indie game Florence, the player follows the life of young Florence Yo, a woman living in New York City, as she navigates work and a newfound love with her boyfriend Krish. The game allows the player to piece together puzzles that progress Florence's life as she works through conversations with her mother, interactions with her boyfriend, and memories from her past. When her relationship with her boyfriend collapses over time, Florence finds healing in embracing her gift of painting, an art that went neglected during this entire time. She rediscovers a painting palette that her ex-boyfriend gave her, and we see Florence starting a new season of her life as an artist. A story about inner healing can be found in a choice to make something beautiful out of the ashes of loss. Maybe that's why stories of inner healing sit with us long after we have finished the narrative. We're filled with touches of hope, and we see the creation of something beautiful from something that was once broken or covered in wounds. Thank you for listening to this 6th episode of the Seeking Wisdom in Stories podcast. I appreciate you taking time to listen in, and I hope to share more with you in the next episode.